In the late 2000s, the internet stood at a crossroads. Over the last decade or so, it had exploded from a niche and nerdy curiosity into an integral part of youth culture. And yet still, it felt like a frontier. With most social media sites still in their infancy, it was instead the forums and image boards that served as the beating heart of online culture and gave birth to the memes and trends that defined the era. It was a time before influencers, before algorithm-driven feeds, and before smartphones redefined the internet's role in our lives. And yet, it was also the beginning of the end. In 2008, Apple would release the App Store, marking the rise of mobile internet use. Meanwhile, meme aggregators and curators like BuzzFeed began to fill the web with engagement-optimized slop. As internet culture became more and more mainstream, the obscure corners and content of the internet became harder and harder to find, and it was in this changing online space that a young Jon Rafman would rise to prominence. Born in 1981 in Montreal, Canada, Rafman was part of the very first generation to grow up alongside the internet, and used that knowledge to explore its darkest corners, taking what he found to create strange, surreal, and often scandalous works of art that explored the intersection of technology, culture, and the human psyche. Today, his works are being showcased in exhibitions across the world, and he's collaborated with the likes of Oneohtrix Point Never, Balenciaga, and Kanye West. But to see how he got there, we have to go all the way back to 2008, with his breakout work, 9 Eyes. In 2007, Google changed the world forever.
Want to go look around?
They sent out a swarm of hybrid electric automobiles, each one bearing 9 cameras on a single pole. 9 unseeing eyes to capture the world without emotion, without bias, and without the consent of their subjects. And what was the response of the world to this new and uninvited form of surveillance? They loved it. Rather than hiding from the cameras, the public welcomed them and were more than eager to be forever preserved in their unseeing gaze. Google Street View was only ever intended to be a navigational tool. Instead, what it became was a cultural phenomenon. Overnight, every single user with an internet connection was given the ability to explore the world from the comfort of their own home, to see new lands through a truthful and transparent perspective, unspoiled by the sensitivities or agendas of a human photographer. For Rafman and many others, this was a lucrative minded material to explore, and Street View blogs would quickly pop up all over the internet for users to save and share unique findings. From both these blogs and his own discoveries, Rafman would explore the panoramas for images that spoke to him, taking formal aspects of color and composition into account to create powerful imagery. And beginning in 2008, started to post these on blogs, PDFs, books, and eventually even gallery exhibitions. This was the 9 Eyes project. For whilst the cameras are heartless in their photography, the viewer is anything but. You can see intention and purpose in these images. You can see people during both their happiest moments and the dull monotony of their daily lives. But more than anything else, you can see them at their most vulnerable. For it's usually the homeless, the poor and the addicted that can't escape the eyes, and have no choice but to be seen at their lowest. What's more, All these years later, these images capture a world and society that doesn't really exist anymore. Both the good and the bad, they provide us an unspoiled glimpse into the past. Today in 2025, the Nine Eyes project is still ongoing. But that's not all that Rafman's been up to, as shortly after the project's launch he began exploring a new virtual world, Second Life.
Hello, do you have any spare Lindenbergs for donations?
I'd love to bear some Lindens for myself, but I'm going to work right.
That's pretty selfish, damn.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty selfish too to go sitting in a chair looking like that and
Oh my god!
Second Life is really weird. Ever since its release in 2003, it's fostered its own cult-like community, completely inscrutable to outsiders. But the biggest clue is in the name, Second Life. This wasn't a game, this wasn't social media, this was an escape, an entire virtual world where users could create a new life and be whoever they truly wanted to be, separate from the often disappointing physical reality. In Second Life, the users, known as residents, create custom virtual representations of themselves with which they explore the vast virtual world, meeting others, trading property, but mostly just doing things I can't show on YouTube. Notably, Second Life was run a bit like Hong Kong, with most developers' revenue being derived from digital land sales to users who could then sell it on and rent it as they saw fit. Now, this might seem like a silly idea, but as the game brought in hundreds of thousands of users, it quickly became incredibly lucrative. Just 3 years after release, one resident would grace the cover of Business World magazine as the first ever real-life millionaire to come out of the Second Life real estate scene. And she wasn't alone. In ongoing years, there'd be even more stories of people quitting their real-life jobs to trade virtual real estate. By 2009, the total size of the Second Life economy was estimated to be about $567 million, greater even than the GDP of small nations like Tonga or Kiribati. But what were people actually doing with this land? Why were they so willing to fork over their hard-earned, real-life money on these little pixelated plots? Because they wanted to create. They wanted to express themselves, to make their own little corner of the universe, their own temples, nightclubs, and, for the most part, a lot of fucked up sex dungeons. And to see it all, we welcome our intrepid explorer, our stranger in a strange land, the Kool-Aid Man.
Hey, Kool-Aid Man.
Hi, Nicholas. So you wanna go sit down and chat somewhere?
Yeah. Do you know of a good place?
Yeah, I know a few places.
Alright.
Kool-Aid Man in Second Life was Rafman's next big project, a series of explorations and guided tours through the mystifying, awe-inspiring, and often disturbing lands of Second Life. All led, of course, by himself, the Kool-Aid Man. And at the core of this work is the 19th century concept of the flaneur, a French term derived from the Old Norse flana, meaning to wander without purpose. The flaneur is an ambivalent figure of urban affluence and modernity, representing the ability to wander detached from society for entertainment from the observation of urban life. In comparison to the bedored or gorka, the flaneur is a true individual, a sigma, if you will, blending into the crowd but not really a part of it, alienated as he is. And who could be a better flaneur of the digital world than the Kool-Aid Man?
I think Kool-Aid Man as an avatar functions differently than most other avatars. Many avatars in Second Life are some form of representation or extension, idealized or other of their owners. I think sometimes Kool-Aid Man's presence is unnerving, and sometimes when I look at Kool-Aid Man's smile, it terrifies me.
Please ignore the horse noises in the background that clip, by the way. Anyways, the Kool-Aid Man is a secular icon, an American pop culture hero recognizable across generations, synonymous not only with Rafman's childhood, but also the ghetto and the Jonestown Massacre. Alongside the idealized hypersexual avatars favored by denizens of Second Life, the Kool-Aid Man clearly doesn't belong here. Breaking through walls into their well-kept worlds, for many he was a nuisance, a griefer there to ruin their immersion, while for others his presence was hilarious, the perfect example of the random style humor that was popular at the time. Either way, they recognized him, and his dumb smile onto which you could project any range of emotions. And through his travels, Rafman found incredible things.
It's not so much the amateur technologies themselves that inspire me, but what amateurs are doing with these technologies, what they are using the technologies to create. That's what really gets me excited. I just love looking at stuff that people have created without the intention of it being called art. I mean, stuff that is being made by people semi-naively who are simply excited to create things. And I think this enthusiasm is shared by many of my colleagues. You know, there's an aspect to Second Life that is grotesquely kitsch, and I can't help but loving this aspect. I think we've reached a point now, my generation, where we don't even know whether we're celebrating something and saying it's great and affirming it, or if we are engaging in an ironic critique and mocking it. We've almost collapsed the two.
The scenes you're seeing right now come from Max Payne 3. None of the gunfights or cinematic action, but just the scenes after the massacres. Because the empty rooms and blood-stained corridors don't need additional context. There's only one reason they could be empty. Everyone's dead and you killed them. This is what Rafman captures in A Man Digging. By stripping them out of their original context, he's able to recontextualize these scenes within his own narrative, utilizing them to explore themes of memory and digital identity, something he'd become increasingly well known for across his works, and during this time he produced plenty of short films. You, the World and I drew on his discoveries from Google Street View, while Remember Carthage featured footage from Second Life. Meanwhile, he helped establish the Vaporwave aesthetic with Woods of Arcady, and on his YouTube channel Arcade Hustler he interviewed the gamers of New York's last great arcade, the Chinatown Fair. At the mecca of fighting games, his interviews would even include a young Gootecks, the original PogChamp, and with his camera he catalogued their highs and lows with incredible authenticity. But there were three films in particular that Rafman would become most well known for, a trilogy that inspired disgust, horror, and even an uncomfortable relatability that would be exhibited across the world, both lauded and despised by critics and contemporaries alike, and they began with Still Life. Still Life, Betamale.
As you look at the screen, it is possible to believe you are gazing into eternity. You see the things that were inside you. This is the womb, the original site of the imagination. You do not move your eyes from the screen. You have become invisible.
So, what exactly are we looking at here? Well, Still Life, Betamale is one of Rafman's many collaborations with Daniel Lopatin, the influential musician nowadays best known as the producer behind The Weeknd and the composer for both Good Time and Uncut Gems. But online you'll hear him more commonly referred to as Oneohtrix Point Never, perhaps the most influential creator behind the vaporwave genre, and this artwork functioned as the accompanying video to the track Still Life, on his most popular album R+7. But what is this video? And why can I only show you the first minute of this 5-minute long masterpiece? Well, that's simple. It's because the rest of this video is composed of some of the most fucked up imagery Rafman could dredge from the darkest corners of the internet. The video is still life. It's a portrait of the Betamale, the internet troll, the online degenerate losing themselves in their most unhealthy obsessions. And as the man pointing at the beginning of the video implies, this might be you. Not all of it, but perhaps some. You if you'd embraced and spiraled into dark desires, trapped within your increasingly grotesque lair, as you yourself grow ever more irredeemable. All your world contained in the computer screen that takes pride of place amongst the trash and filth. The film, like The Descent of the Betamale, starts off reasonably tame, featuring often fetishized groups like costumed furries, as well as kigurumi, a more niche subculture of mostly men who use masks to emulate the appearance of anime girls. But as the video continues, we get more and more glimpses into the true degeneracy of its subject, culminating in a fast-paced montage of grotesque hentai imagery. But it's afterwards, I think, that we find the most compelling image, which is of this fursuited fox drowning in quicksand, because he voluntarily put himself in this situation, but now he can't escape. No matter how much he struggles, he truly seems doomed to sink down further into his addictions and degeneracy, without anyone left to reach out and save him. In the final moment, as he's about to be lost completely, he opens his mouth as though to call for help, but there's no one left to hear. It's too late, and thus he sinks entirely under the weight of his sins. This is perhaps the most well-known and controversial of Rafman's many works, and was in fact originally released as a post on Mew, 4chan's music board, where it drew mixed reactions, though most actually seemed to love it, some seeing it as a deeply meaningful piece or even viewing it in a positive light as a sort of ode to 4chan, but others still were disgusted by what they saw, or even offended by such an unsympathetic portrayal. After all, plenty of the subcultures depicted, like furries or kigurumi, aren't necessarily sexual or harmful, and so many felt unfairly stereotyped by the worst members of their communities. And this kind of ties into a growing criticism of Rafman that other artists would also raise. It seemed like he had a formula now, and a simple one at that. First, he'd go on the internet and find some fucked up pictures on 4chan, which just isn't hard. Then he'd take these images, practically unchanged, and wrap them in some message about society or the human condition, the exact sort of thing that gallery curators adore. And so these old and internet unaware curators would bankroll him to display what are essentially other people's creations in their galleries, just so that rich, snobby boomers can come in and gawk at how disgusting and degenerate they are. Look at these furries, aren't they weird? Isn't Japanese porn just so creepy? Aren't these people freaks? I think many people had this interpretation of Rafman's work, and it is undeniable that the people bankrolling and displaying his art are overwhelmingly old, voyeuristic rich people who know nothing about the subcultures depicted. But I don't think you can say the same about Rafman himself. You know, this film was obviously born out of disgust, but not that of the outsider looking in, but a man looking at his peers. There's some validity in the criticism, but I don't think it entirely diminishes what is undoubtedly a landmark piece in his career. But for now we'll put all that to the side, because it's time to move on to the next chapter in this terrible trilogy, the often maligned Mainsqueeze. Once again now, I'm only going to show you the first minute of what is a 7-minute long video. This time featuring goth gabbers, a man crushing a watermelon between his thighs, CGI Japanese pornography, as well as scrolling Tumblr interspersed by a screaming demon, a furry writhing in shibari bindings, a man beating up his keyboard, and a washing machine violently destroying itself, all overlaid by computer-generated voiceovers of selected Tumblr posts. So there's a lot going on here. But the worst of it is definitely the crush porn. At around 2 minutes in, we first see this young woman cradling a small crawfish, which she then goes on to brutally crush to death beneath her shoe, ensuring it suffers as much as possible in the process. This film is disgusting and a mess, but it's kinda meant to be. Still Life Betamale was very clear in its subject matter, but Mainsqueeze is a much broader picture of internet culture. It's an exploration of that abyss in an attempt to give a sort of poetic treatment to found material without necessarily making any ethical judgments. And much like with the last film, I think it's the final scene that best encapsulates its feeling. Here we see hundreds of people stuck in a giant swimming pool, passively floating to the rhythm of artificial waves. In the blurry footage, no one person is identifiable. In fact, their bodies almost seem to blend together as the waves go up and down. They seem trapped, but nobody's trying to escape. They're happy, or at least ambivalent to be carried along. And maybe you're one of them, caught up in the current cultural moment and just going along with it. So while Mainsqueeze is obviously a lot less mean-spirited than its predecessor, its sort of messy, unfocused structure drew some criticism, with some characterizing it as basically being a sort of cringe compilation for art world snobs. But luckily, that pointed focus would soon return for the grand finale, Erysichthon.
You fell asleep from exhaustion at 7 a.m. this morning. You were awake all night, and the only thought in your mind was that to exist is to devour oneself.
And again, we'll pause on this beautiful image, because to understand what we're looking at, we first need to learn where it gets its name from. Erysichthon of Thessaly was a Greek king of legend, cursed by the goddess Demeter for crimes against her sacred grove. In revenge, she inflicted upon him insatiable hunger, consuming his every thought and leading him to sell all his possessions in a desperate attempt to fund this growing appetite. Until, with nothing left, he eventually devours himself. And this video is rich with that symbolism. From the snake swallowing its own tail to the drone circling its creator, the looping swing set, we see the endless chain of internet consumption, all summed up in a voiceover from the impressively prescient mind of the one and only Sammy Classic Sonic fan.
Cause you frickin' pricks just can't ever be quenched. Your fantasies can't ever be quenched, can they? You frickin' pricks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
So very well said, and it's the banality of this consumption that really stands out, characterized by the man watching Furryvore on his smartphone while absent-mindedly petting his dog. When we consume so much of this culture, it becomes our own, and so we all become part of the massive Ouroboros of slop that is the internet, falling into the void of our own creation. And so the cycle starts anew as the video begins again, but for Rafman, this was the end of an era. Not just the final film in this terrible trilogy, but his last work utilizing primarily found footage. After everything, it was finally time to abandon the flaneur and explore a new era, where somehow, things are about to get a whole lot weirder.
If you can't sleep at night, it means you're awake in someone else's dream. How many hours have passed? How many days or even years?
In the years following, Rafman would continue to explore both new and old themes, utilizing animation, video games, and CGI renders. Neon Parallel 1996 would show us a fictionalized Tokyo, drenched in neon and melancholy, while Open Heart Warrior would evoke the experience of a young man trying to heal from trauma via online self-help gurus. Meanwhile, both Poor Magic and Disasters Under the Sun would show thousands of faceless 3D avatars continuously tortured in an abstract digital space. Legendary Reality showed us a digital tapestry of dreams and post-human aesthetics, and Shadowband gave us a descent into fragmented digital dreams and psychological paranoia. There was a far, far simpler idea that would form the basis for Rafman's greatest work in this period: a dream journal. The concept couldn't be more straightforward. Rafman would wake up in the morning, write down his dreams, and send them off to freelance animators. But by combining old 3D software with Rafman's own strange mind, they were able to create something truly uncanny and bizarre. So to give you an example, let's just quickly run through the 23rd of January, 2016. Okay, so we seem to be in some sort of mansion with this big suit of armor, and it's home to this young woman here who's holding a skull with a snake and dagger shoved through its eye sockets. And then in comes a Minotaur holding a massive bucket of blood, which then just kind of casually splashes into her eyes, and this of course also turns her into a Minotaur, as you would expect. And with a job well done, he goes off to the bathroom, sits down, pops a squat, and we'll just give him a second here to do his work. Scratches his face. Alright, I think he's done now. Gets up, goes to take a look. Let's see what he's done. Beta buff baby. Well, he's not about to deal with that shit, so he just kind of gives the late-term abortion, flushes the toilet, and casually walks off. So let's go check out now what's on the balcony. What is there to see from the beautiful balcony of this abode? What is that? I don't know, but there's a big black panther now just coming over to jump through it. And there's also this guy who's just kind of eating a zombie head off the end of his shovel. So he's had enough, he goes back inside, looks at his bed, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? Well, he doesn't know either. He's had enough of this shit, so he just runs off, jumps out the window, it's over. But while we're here, we may as well look at another one, the 8th of February 2016, which begins with this man listlessly trying to sleep in a dingy apartment, and then without any explanation whatsoever, cuts to this woman being literally ironed out with tape over her mouth. And we never get back to this, by the way, we never get this explained. So we cut back to the original guy, he goes over to this snake that's being cut open, and he finds an egg. He looks at the egg, it's got a skull on it, which is a good sign, meaning that this one is good to eat. So he puts it in his mouth, devours it whole, and then goes back to watching TV. And as we zoom in on the TV, you can see it's actually just two people getting lynched. Great TV. We then cut to another guy who wakes up in bed because he's a goat man now. He has a goat head, he has goat hands. It's all a bit crazy, so he decides he needs to get up and see what's changed. Very slowly he gets up. He stands very slowly. He walks a bit, and he's a goat now. He is now entirely a goat and ready to enter into the mysterious hedge maze. And we get some shaky shots of him navigating around this dark and spooky environment. And we never know what's going to happen when he goes around the corner, but he finds it. His evil twin, the blindfolded goat. And he's not intimidated. They face off, but his true enemy is behind the goat. It's actually a fish inside an egg smoking a cigarette. And the fish blows a cloud of smoke. This doesn't really intimidate him. He vomits up a condom with a fish in it, and that does the job. It turns his horns white, they grow up even longer, they go right into his head, they kill him instantly. But he actually wasn't a goat. He was an android all along. And the original guy now comes over and sees this, and he is obsessed. He's looking at it, and he is hungry. His saliva drips down, and we zoom in onto that pallet survivor, revealing it is actually Candy Crush. This whole thing was Candy Crush. We're on this woman's phone, we're on the train, she's playing Candy Crush, and she has extremely long legs stretching all the way down the aisle. This guy's got money on his mind, very much approved. She's still got her long legs out. Let's go see what's happening in the head of the train. So let's zoom in further, and we see this woman with a cutlass cutting the sky open, with meat raining down from above. And the train goes on, speeding off into the sunset as the meat continues to rain down.
All I want is a dreamless sleep.
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 So what you just saw was only 2 of the least pornographic films in the series, but there are a lot of them. Rafman was working on this for 4 years, from 2016 to 2019, producing an endless number of wonderful nightmares. In fact, there was so much material that he was able to make a 94-minute feature-length film, with a score composed by James Ferraro and Oneohtrix Point Never, a modern masterpiece led by the iconic protagonist, Xanax Girl, featuring her friends Legboy, Ace the Dog, and this guy, whatever he is. It's a film I've watched multiple times in order to make this video, and I cannot emphasize enough how utterly impossible it is to predict at any time what's going to happen next. In almost every second of the film, you're going to see something entirely new and profoundly bizarre. From Michael Jordan slam dunking you so hard you fall through the bottom of the earth, to wearing your dead boyfriend as an earring, engaging in satanic rituals, and of course, a lot of furries. This is Rafman after all. It's a Dantean journey through the unsettling unconscious of an internet addict, and it doesn't shy away from that. We see disgusting post-human chimeras, blood and filth, BDSM Japanese schoolgirls eaten out by giant snails crying sperm milk from Yano's faces growing inside their rears, a dark sort of Alice in Wonderland story through a subconscious hellscape formed by exposure to the worst of the web. Watching Dream Journal is a profoundly strange experience, whether encountered in a gallery or at home on acid. But it's meant to be strange. When Rafman chose the software for this project, he was deliberately echoing the uncanny creations of mid-2000s hobbyist animators. The difference is that those hobbyists, delusional or not, worked out of genuine passion. Whether telling a story or indulging a fetish, they poured love into their animations and shared them online because they believed in them. Their work was authentic, no matter how bizarre it seemed to outsiders. Rafman's work, on the other hand, is not authentic. Unlike what he used to discover as a flaneur, his new works were often weird purely for the sake of being weird, and unlike the hobbyists who carefully crafted every frame, he of course did not animate any of this, because unlike them, this is his job, and he has a team. Though you might not know their names, they made these unholy scenes. Much like Google Street View or the deep web artists he once drew from, they were simply a tool to express his creative vision, the one where he had quite a bit more creative control. And so maybe it won't surprise you at all, where Rafman's journey led him in the next chapter.
"2 a.m., wake up. 2:05 a.m., cold shower. 2:15 a.m., breakfast, almonds, breast milk bought off Facebook, 50 milligrams Adderall. 2:30 a.m., begin workout, incline bench 2 plates, 12 by 12 with 30 seconds of rest, no warm up. 2:45 a.m., edging, 4 hours for discipline. 6:45 a.m., cold shower. 7 a.m., begin sprint to work. 8 a.m., arrive at work. 8:05 a.m., get called into boss's office. 8:06 a.m., get fired from job for repeated inappropriate comments and predatory behavior. 8:10 a.m., sprint back home. 9:10 a.m., lunch, raw cod. Berries foraged on the way home. Small pebbles for digestion. 50 milligrams of Adderall. 9:30 a.m., edging as punishment. 3 p.m., bedtime.
Rafman's next step was AI art, a term usually spoken like poison, a slur in the mouths of everyone who utters it. I think the general sentiment around AI is very clear. People don't just dislike AI art, they despise it, and yet day by day it spreads like a plague permeating our feeds on TikTok, YouTube, and now inside art galleries too. It seems so long ago now that AI art was just a niche curiosity, a quirky technology that let you turn anime girls into spaghetti and render glitchy, psychedelic nonsense. But if there's one person who's been there from the very beginning, it's Jon Rafman. From the earliest models that churned out disgusting and distorted monstrosities to the finely tuned photorealism of today, Rafman has always been at the forefront. In fact, it's no stretch to call him the most influential AI artist alive. His work has appeared on Lil Yachty album covers, Travis Scott zines, even Kanye West music videos. And yet when Blade comments on a post by Rafman's AI musician Cloudy Heart, his Reddit just assumes he's been hacked. Like the clip I played at the beginning of this segment, Rafman's AI works can be funny, they can be unsettling or mesmerizing, but to the general public, they'll never be more than illegitimate slop. To Rafman though, AI is simply the latest tool used to capture the human condition. When the camera was invented, critics didn't see it as art. After all you have to do is stand there and click a button. It's the machine that does the work. And in the 21st century, rather than the click of the camera, we have the prompt of the LLM. From his perspective, AI art is simply the photography of the new post-truth era. In a world where every post, every image, every opinion you see online could very well be the product of a soulless machine, the grotesque, uncanny imagery of the LLM reflects the internet exactly as it is. A distorted, inauthentic mess, one that you can never trust. In 2025, Rafman returned with his first major exhibition in years. Proof of Concept, a sprawling installation reimagining television for the AI age. Every single thing you see here was made by AI. His AI idol Cloudy Heart appears prominently, a young emo girl who doesn't exist but still posts consistently across social media, Spotify, and even has her own crypto rug pull. AI music videos play in rooms draped in AI monstrosities. We see impossible AI dreams, AI knockoffs of Lo-Fi Girl, AI nonsense. There are so many different creations all layered together into this project, but when you look at the finished spectacle, it mostly just feels like an empty mess. In the press reaction to this exhibition, they seized on one word to describe Rafman: flaneur. But that's wrong. Rafman hasn't been a flaneur for a very long time now. In fact, in 2025, every single project he's working on is AI. And yet the works that people still connect with, the ones those critics still recall when they hear his name, are just those simple journeys into the deep parts of the internet. The exploration and unveiling of elements of culture and society that people hadn't seen before. Because what they captured was authentic. It was human. When the button clicked on the camera, the machine might have captured the image, but the subject was us. Our beauty, our horror, our lives. Rafman's works once stood at the intersection of technology and humanity, but somewhere along the way, the balance tipped. Technology won, and what the LLM captures is merely the aftermath. What we see now is simply the skin of long-dead subcultures thinly stretched over an unthinking algorithm. It's not a pleasant sight. When the deep-faked avatars of Short Story 1 emotionlessly recite grotesque monologues about nailing people to doors, what I feel isn't shock, it isn't fascination, it's nothing. Jon Rafman is undoubtedly the most interesting AI artist in the world, and yet his work has never been more boring. This video began in 2008, a time many consider to be the golden age of the internet. But now it's 2025 and things look dark. 17 years have passed and Rafman's Kool-Aid Man will soon be an adult. But the online worlds he once traversed have changed so much in his absence. Second Life has largely died out, and whilst both the tech giant Meta and a million different crypto startups have all tried to take its place at the center of the metaverse, only one has really been successful: VR chat. And thus the metaverse has gone from a wide open world to a series of gate-kept and guarded private rooms, blocking out the casual wanderer. Likewise, the forums and image boards that once hosted a million diverse communities have now all been swallowed up and assimilated into the great beast that is Reddit, where power mods, strict rules, and the tyranny of the masses have homogenized and anonymized once thriving online societies into a soul-sucking content mill. And for the forum users who still wanted to cling to community, Discord emerged to isolate them into their respective servers. Just over a decade ago, if you had a question online, you were more than likely to come across an enthusiast forum or blog post explaining your exact problem. But now those people are all tucked away behind Discord invites. Closed off from the rest of the internet, that information will never be passed along. That community's knowledge will die out. Instead, you have to resort to adding Reddit to the end of your searches just to see a response from a real human and not an SEO-optimized slop site. It can now truly be said that the internet is entering a dark age, one where despite the exponential growth in its users, it's never been so hard to actually find them. And it's here now that we can see the true anthropological value of Rafman's work. From 2008 to today, from wonder-filled exploration to a grim vision of the future, they tell the story of the internet. And back in that interview in 2009, he stated exactly what it was that makes those early works still resonate to this day. And it wasn't him. It was the strange works of strange people. People who created not because it was art, not because it was their job, but simply for the sake of making something. To naively express themselves, seek community, and show the world that they were here. The truth is, Rafman was never the internet's strangest artist. The true strangest artists of the internet are faceless, unnamed and uncredited, and yet so much more authentic than anything you'll ever see in a gallery. So get away from the mainstream and take up the spirit of the old age web surfer, the wanderlust-filled flaneur, because they're still out there, in the dark corners of the internet, in its strangest and seediest communities. That's where you'll find authenticity. That's where you'll find humanity. If you've made it this far, please make sure to subscribe. I don't upload often, but if we can make it to 100 subscribers, I will promise that in the next one, I'll make a strong effort to include less furry smut. And while you're there, also make sure to check out Rafman's website in the description. There you can watch all the works we've seen today, full and uncensored, including the new stuff. They're all really interesting. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.